Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Author by Heavenly Overlord. Translator by NYOIBO Studio. Audio novels by Novelist. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 71. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu once again felt hope in their hearts. Qiu Changjian chuckled. It seems you have already made up your mind. Well then, make some preparations. Tomorrow, the evil forest will be open to you. By the way, as a reminder, you have the opportunity to enter the Sanctuary Divine Vault as newly arrived prospective holy disciples, so you may select cultivation techniques and weapons. Qiu Changjian concluded before he left. With the sanctuary about to dissolve, he naturally needed to consult with all the other holy disciples. Together, they would investigate whatever had happened behind closed doors which had led to the dissolution of the sanctuary. Su Yu bowed in gratitude. Qiu Changjian had helped him a lot. After Qiu Changjian left, Su Yu and Chia Jingyu entered the Sanctuary Divine Vault. Inside was a vast collection of cultivation techniques and weapons. Su Yu casually took a quick glance around. What amazed him was that even the lowest level technique was at an arguably advanced level, and they were just randomly scattered on the ground, like they were of no interest to anyone. All over the counter 100 cultivation technique manuals were neatly arranged. A closer look revealed them all to be saint-level cultivation techniques. Of the entire Fenglan Empire, only the Royal Collection had a single saint-level cultivation technique manual. Here, 100 were casually lying on the table. Chia Jingyu's heart immediately filled with joy as she set out to choose a saint-level cultivation technique which suited her. Su Yu was very interested as he thumbed through the saint-level cultivation techniques. The diverse variety was dizzying and a feast for Su Yu's eyes. He wanted to try many of the cultivation techniques, but forced himself to remain rational with great self-control. Since he already had Purple Star Thunderbolt and Floating Light Shadow, he would only cultivate the most suitable cultivation technique. As he looked through, he realized the collection had no cultivation techniques which suited his needs. Chia Jingyu, clear-eyed and bright, also did not choose a cultivation technique, softly sighed, "There is no cultivation technique suitable for me. If I forced myself to choose, I would do more harm than good." Su Yu could not help but secretly admire Chia Jingyu's self-control and rational nature. Her attitude was excellent. Suddenly, Su Yu caught sight of a seemingly additional layer of manuals hidden underneath the counter. Su Yu's pupils dilated as his enhanced sight activated. He was able to see down to the smallest detail, and as such he spied a fine crack. With a stretch of his hand, he pulled open the hidden cubby effortlessly. 3 copies of cultivation techniques radiated a strange brilliance under Su Yu's gaze. One copy was named Icy Heart Core, another was named Reverie of Dewdrops, and the other was named Infernal Demon Pupils. However, when both Su Yu and Chia Jingyu examined them more closely, they were shocked. Deity-level cultivation technique. The saint-level cultivation technique of 9 styles of Jade Unicorn used by Senior Sister Lu against Feng Hao had been developed from the deity-level cultivation technique, Icy Heart Core. Back then, Su Yu and other people had been astonished by the simple concept of a deity level existing above saint level. Whoa! Su Yu held out his hand and pulled Icy Heart Core into his palm. Immediately there was a cold blast and his palm was instantly covered with white frost. Having had the foundation of Tempest, Su Yu did not feel the chill as he opened it with great interest. Icy Heart Core. Deity-level cultivation technique divided into 3 levels, lower, upper, and top. Lower realm. The air will become frost and adhere to any foreign surface, which will turn anything into a divine weapon. Upper realm. The body will turn into frost. Every gesture can freeze all living things. Top realm. The heart will transform into an icy heart core and absorb all the cold air to refine the cultivation of intense chill in the blood vessels. The basic requirement for this cultivation is the foundation of an ice cultivation technique. The core requirement is superbly powerful insight. At the bottom of the title page was a written comment from the Holy King, "My sanctuary disciple, if there is no comprehension within one day, immediately give up. Otherwise, you will face at least 30, 50, or many more years before you see any progress." Su Yu's eyes were ablaze. This cultivation technique was simply tailor-made for him. He had the foundation of Tempest, and with space-time manipulation he could cultivate 50 times faster than others. With that ability, even a poor level of insight would be sufficient for him to learn a thing or two. Su Yu thumbed through the technique on the spot, caught in the acceleration of space-time speed. Chia Jingyu's eyes darted between the 3 deity-level cultivation techniques. She immediately skipped over infernal demon pupils, as this cultivation technique made her uncomfortable. Having no ice technique foundation, she also gave up on icy heart core after contemplating for a moment. She picked up Reverie of Dewdrops to flip through and, in a flash, her eyes lit up with delight. This deity-level cultivation technique was obviously suitable for her cultivation. With anticipation, Chia Jingyu also began her comprehension on the spot. Time slowly passed. After about half a day, Su Yu slowly opened his eyes carried a cool edge. Aha! The air around his whole body became a white mist as the vapor in the air froze into ice needles which dropped to the ground, making crisp clinking sounds. This was a palpable, pleasant surprise. Half a day's time with 50 times the space-time speed was equivalent to a full 25 days of work. Su Yu had successfully comprehended Icy Heart Core to a lower realm. At the holy meat, thanks to the transformation of my soul, my powerful insight seems to have taken a qualitative leap. Su Yu thought. Of course, the greater help was still the space-time manipulation. Without it, Su Yu's powerful insight would still need an entire month to achieve what he had just done. Seeing Chia Jingyu was still in meditation, Su Yu did not disturb her and instead looked at the remaining 2 deity-level cultivation techniques. Reverie of Dewdrops was obviously not suitable for Su Yu, but infernal demon pupils flashed in front of Su Yu's eyes. Based on intuition, Su Yu sensed there was a layer of faint soul energy shrouding it. His suspicion was certainly confirmed the moment he opened it. Infernal demon pupils, deity-level cultivation technique, secret technique of the soul, divided into 2 parts. The soul-seeking part. Upon successful cultivation, the user can unleash the soul-seeking technique to forcibly search the memories in the mind of someone who is of the same, or lower realm than you. The soul control part. Upon successful cultivation, the user can manipulate the other person's soul in a battle to control their physical body. The opponent must not be more than 1 level higher than the user. Su Yu's pupils contracted. This was indeed the secret technique of the soul and, furthermore, the results were astonishing. Eyes ablaze, Su Yu manipulated space-time and immediately sank into comprehension on the spot. Half a day later Su Yu slowly opened his eyes, filled with pleasant surprise. After the soul fusion, his innate soul talent had completely reached its peak. Successful cultivation of the secret technique of the soul depended on the right conditions. He had gained enlightenment on the spot with 1 deity-level cultivation technique manual, cultivating a total of 2 parts. The soul-seeking and soul-control techniques controlled the heart and mind at the same time. In a single day of training, he had cultivated 2 deity-level cultivation techniques. Su Yu was filled with confidence for the evil forest journey. As Su Yu reveled in his success, Chia Jingyu opened her bright eyes. Her pretty face was bursting with joy. Brother Yu, I have succeeded in bringing my comprehension level to the lower level of maturity. Reverie of Dewdrops was also divided into lower, upper, and top realms. Chia Jingyu had made a breakthrough to lower realm in just 1 day. Su Yu inwardly gasped. He had only managed to comprehend the lower realm by using space-time manipulation to accelerate time, which meant he had essentially trained for 25 days. But Chia Jingyu had truly only needed a single day. This was a deity-level cultivation technique. If he did not know Chia Jingyu's character, Su Yu would have suspected that she was bluffing. He suddenly remembered that day amidst the pear blossoms under the moonlight, when he had hand-guided Qia Jingyu move by move and Qia Jingyu had managed to successfully comprehend Su Yu's holy decree after 10 demonstrations. Now, she had only taken a day to comprehend a deity-level cultivation technique. Qia Jingyu's powerful insight was 25 times stronger than his. Was insight that powerful still even considered human? As he gazed at the smiling Qia Jingyu, Su Yu felt his brain numb. His intuition told him that Qia Jingyu's powerful insight was extraordinary. But he could not divulge this matter. If he did, it could bring misfortune to Qia Jingyu. Su Yu nodded with a smile. Congratulations to Jingyu's greatly increased ability. The two of them exchanged what they had experienced while they had worked on their comprehension. Qia Jingyu's eyes sparkled upon learning that Su Yu had gained insight into the 2 deity-level cultivation techniques. She recalled that Su Yu's powerful insight was seemingly outstanding and entirely unmatched. Su Yu blushed with shame and felt guilt in his heart. His manipulation of space-time was actually cheating. How could it be compared to Qia Jingyu's supernaturally powerful insight? When it came to choosing weapons, Qia Jingyu forfeited her chance as she was better with melee combat and using her hands. Any weapon was more likely to be a burden to her than anything else. Su Yu could consciously modify his pupils to see far, which was a big advantage and compatible with a bow and arrows. The combination usually carried impressive results. Unfortunately, there were no suitable bows or arrows when he looked around. The bows and arrows there were made of the finest materials, which required strong arms to exert formidable power. Su Yu's physique was not his strong suit, and therefore he had to forget about using the formidable bows and arrows. Just as Su Yu was filled with disappointment, an unusual weapon drew his attention. It was a ball of hair-thin silk thread, transparent and clear, and difficult to detect with the naked eye. Su Yu tried to touch it with a finger. Zing! As though he had been electrocuted, Su Yu quickly retracted his hand and glanced at his finger. There was a fine cut on his finger and blood seeping with incomparable stinging. With a sharp gasp, Su Yu wondered, if he had allowed himself to put any more pressure than he had, would he have lost his finger? It was truly sharp silk thread. He looked closely at its instructions. Entwined dragon silk, tenacious and soft, this silk can withstand the force of 13,000 pounds. Incomparably precise and invincible, this silk thread can easily cut gold and silver. Those using it must take extreme care. Su Yu's eyes were ablaze and his heart pounded. Perhaps the entwined dragon silk was more suitable for him than bows and arrows. After he finished looking at its instructions, Su Yu retrieved the entwined dragon silk. The entwined dragon silk's unfolded diameter could extend to just over 300 feet. Near the entwined dragon silk was an unassuming black jade ring of a plain design. It was simply laid out and clearly made of a hard material, something able to withstand the entwined dragon silk's cuts. When the entwined dragon silk was not in use, it could be coiled within the black jade ring to prevent the user from hurting himself. When in use, the entwined dragon silk could be unfurled with the flicking of the user's fingers. The method was simple and convenient, coupled with the transparency of the entwined dragon silk. Both the defensive and offensive capabilities of the silk were incredibly effective. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu had both reaped great rewards. They immediately hurried to the evil forest entrance. At first glance, there were many people waiting for it to open. Among the familiar faces were Feng Hao, senior sister Lu, and Zhang Mingyi. Moreover, they had joined Du Lin's small team. The top 10 prospective holy disciples, each fighting each other, separately recruited other prospective holy disciples from beyond the top 10 in order to form teams and join forces as they sought for fortune within the evil forest together. Whether to boost their Dolly disciple qualifications or to ruthlessly drum up resources before the dissolution of the sanctuary, the evil forest was the unrivaled choice for training. Not only was Du Lin present, but the other 9 holy disciples were as well. Even the number 1 ranked prospective holy disciple, Long Xiaoyu, a 25-year-old young woman, was present. Her ability was, without a doubt, the best of the prospective holy disciples. She was a level 8 peak, certainly the most eligible to boost her holy disciple qualifications. Under her command, there were also the second and third ranked prospective holy disciples. Each of them was at level 8 cultivation base. With their combined power they were almost unrivaled in the evil forest. Upon hearing the commotion, Long Xiaoyu glanced sideways and calmly fixed her gaze above Su Yu's figure, as if she was a high and mighty king. You said what I should have said. In a month, it will be me who will become the holy disciple, not you. She stated haughtily. Su Yu turned a deaf ear. In the distance Zhang Mingyi's eyes held bitter resentment. His gaze fell upon Chia Jingyuan. Unable to disguise his feelings, he leered, "Junior sister Chia, how about you join your senior brother's team? Senior brother Du is generous and magnanimous. If you are willing to abandon Su Yu, we will be able to accommodate you in our team. Senior brother Zhang, you just worry about yourself. Brother you and I are together," Chia Jingyu responded indifferently. PFFT. In the evil forest, you both will not live more than 3 days without a strong protector. Zhang Mingyi glared at Su Yu and sneered as he then joined Du Lin and stepped into the evil forest. Before Du Lin left, his eyes throbbed with murderous intent and he coldly shot a glance towards Su Yu. It was difficult to kill someone outside the forest, but, inside the forest, it would be hard for even the Holy King to investigate, should Su Yu mysteriously die. The murderer of a younger brother was a sworn enemy for life. Su Yu's heart suddenly turned cold when he saw Du Lin's murderous intent. Did Du Lin think Su Yu was still a weak, bullied newcomer? Should they meet again, Su Yu would have to teach him an unforgettable lesson. The sun set and the moon rose as midnight arrived above their heads. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 72. At the evil forest's entrance, the caretaker went among the people gathered in order to issue jade hammers and scrolls. The specific profile of each slayer was described on each scroll. The purpose of the jade hammer was to retrieve elixirs. The elixir on each slayer's body was sealed in a hardy jade bottle. Only the force of the Holy King could crack it open. Within each jade hammer, there was a trace of the Holy King's power. With their items carefully packed away, Su Yu and Chia Jingyu entered the forest. Soon after entering the forest, everyone was completely dispersed and separated from the other teams in the vast expanse of forest. There was silence all around, only the cold wind could be heard whirling in the forest. Chia Jingyu was alert and rapt with attention in order to safeguard against the unexpected. Su Yu smiled, dilated his pupils, and swept his gaze over all directions. Every movement within a 5-mile range was within his view. He shook his head in disappointment after he had scanned all the area he could see. There was no sign of a slayer. The evil forest was divided into an outer periphery, an inner periphery and a core. A depth of 40 miles belonged to the outer periphery. 40 more miles from the edge of the outer periphery led to the middle of the inner periphery. At the heart of the forest was the core, with a radius of 20 miles. The slayers usually only appeared in the inner periphery in order to prevent being discovered and beheaded by sanctuary disciples. It was said that there were scary level 8 of the martial path slayers within the depths of the inner periphery. In the core, legend stated that there was the existence of a level 9 of the martial path slayer. He was known both as the Slayer King and the Evil Forest King. The 2 pieces of divine grade spirit elixir were on his body. After a whole day, Su Yu and Chia Jingyu had crossed a span of 20 miles as they walked through the dense forest with great difficulty. All of a sudden Su Yu, who had been scanning the forest ahead, twitched his eyebrows as his face adopted a grave expression. He quietly halted all movement and whispered to Chia Jingyu, "A slayer has appeared." Su Yu looked somber. Was it not said that slayers usually only appeared in the 40-mile inner periphery? Why was there a slayer in the outer periphery? He combed his mind for information on slayers and his face became even graver. Is this Fenglan Empire's notorious slayer, the Obscura? He is an expert in the art of concealment, proficient in the mechanisms of traps, and can cut people down like grass. He once massacred an entire town of weak, elderly, women, and children in a valley just so he could test a trap mechanism. Hundreds of innocent people were exterminated overnight. Chia Jingyu's pretty eyes turned cold. She had heard of this tragedy in her childhood. The Slayer's savagery and viciousness often elicited hate and anger from others. Swish. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu leaned forward as they quietly walked through the thick forest. There are blood stains. He's hurt. Chia Jingyu whispered when she saw blood with her sharp eyes as they arrived near a hidden cave entrance. Near the cave entrance, several drops of fresh blood remained, emitting a faint smell. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He slowly nodded. Let's take advantage of his injury and kill him. He had no qualms about killing a slayer who was completely devoid of all humanity. Su Yu's eyes remained calm, however, and not impulsive as he whispered, "There's a trap at the mouth of the cave. It must have been set up before his injury to prevent enemy invasion." Chia Jingyu examined the area closely and only just discovered the ground before the cave entrance was slightly peculiar. Had it not been for Su Yu's warning, she may not have noticed it. The Obscura had definitely proved to be proficient with traps. "Hold on to me, I will use my floating light shadow technique to fly past the trap." Su Yu slowly stood up. The trap occupied the entire area in front of the cave entrance. Only the use of floating light shadow could allow them to fly across, like a dragonfly skimming across the surface of a pond. Chia Jingyu murmured in agreement and held onto Su Yu's arm. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. He took a deep breath and used floating light shadow. His figure was like a swallow flying between the river waves, dancing on the crests. With a tap of the tip of his toe, he floated 30 feet away. His body was as light as a swan, and there was a beauty in his embrace. Together, they moved forward against the wind. Swoosh. Su Yu easily avoided the large trap at the cave entrance and ducked into the cave. Su Yu did not rush to charge in, however, but instead carried Chia Jingyu with a gentle stoop. There was a very fine wire at the cave entrance. If it had not been for Su Yu's keen, magical pupils and their enhanced observational skills, they may have accidentally tripped the wire trap. The steel wire was the trigger for the trap. There were 3 sharp axes over the top of their heads. If they had touched the steel wire, the axes would have unexpectedly dropped from above and cut them in half. A chain mechanism. Chia Jingyu gasped. The Obscura's plan was flawless. They had escaped a trap only to land in another trap with scarce realization. Luckily Su Yu detected the second trap in time. They made their way past the steel wire by bending over, and the area within the cave cleared. A middle-aged big man with a bleeding leg groaned in agony on the ground. He matched the supposed appearance of the Obscura. His cultivation base was a scary level 7 lower tier. Ah, it's actually 2 level 5 juniors. The Obscura uttered in disbelief and great astonishment. Whoosh. Chia Jingyu's face paled as the Obscura, clearly injured, unexpectedly stood up safe and sound with a cruel look looming in his gaze as he sized up Su Yu and Chia Jingyu. "Never mind. It's enough that there's a jade hammer on you. I spent a lot of effort tempting you sanctuary disciples to come here." The corners of the Obscura's mouth curled with a tyrannical sneer. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu were both surprised. So, the Obscura's injury was intended to lure the sanctuary disciples inside the cave. The fresh blood outside the cave was left intentionally in order to create the illusion that the Obscura had been seriously injured. His intention was to take away their jade hammers. What a crafty Obscura! How terrifying was an uninjured level 7 lower tier! Su Yu's eyes flashed. His finger lightly flicked without the Obscura realizing. Start. Su Yu made the first move. Purple Star Thunderbolt. Aha! Violet Thunder Arc pulsed with raging flames. The air of destruction was terrifying and alarming. Chia Jingyu also boldly made her move, Reverie of Dewdrops. Crash. The vapor in the air gathered like it had been summoned by the water god, condensed in the heart of her jade-like palm. 10 dewdrops filled with pure vital energy shot outward. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The speed of the dewdrops was very fast. They pierced the air, making sharp cracking sounds which were abnormally ear-piercing. The tyrannical face of the Obscura froze. Aghast, he paled. Deity-level cultivation technique. Who are you guys? The sanctuary disciples have never comprehended deity-level cultivation techniques. But it was too late. He was overwhelmed and stunned, having to withstand attacks from two people at the same time. Invisible kick. The Obscura hollered. He stood on his left leg, his right leg continuously kicking. The speed was so fast his leg was practically invisible. Only a succession of residual shapes could be seen. It was impossible to distinguish where exactly his leg truly was. Even without his traps, the Obscura's ability was still frightening. Boom. Purple Star Thunderbolt continued, its thunder flames ignited everything. 10 dewdrops, capable of piercing all living things, flew onward, powerful and terrifying. Ah! Zing, zing, zing. The Obscura repeatedly stumbled back with an expression of horror. His abdomen had a thumb-sized hole, as he had been pierced by the dewdrops. Watery blood flowed from the wound. His right leg was scorched by the thunder flames, and the sole of his foot smelled charred. He was already down after one fight. If it had been one-on-one combat, even if the opponent had deity-level cultivation techniques, it would have been difficult to defeat a level 7 cultivation-based slayer. But the combined force of two people was indeed really thorny. The Obscura was supposed to be the hunter with his traps, but the prey was more powerful than expected. Now, he was trapped. Teeth clenched, the Obscura bellowed loudly, "Big brother! Quickly make your move!" Boom! A person suddenly emerged from an exceedingly well-concealed hiding place just outside the cave's entrance. His ability in cultivation base was also level 7 lower tier. His appearance and cultivation base were almost identical to the Obscura's. Swish! This new Obscura easily crossed over the trap at the cave entrance and leaned over to bypass the dangerous steel wire as they stood behind both Su Yu and Chia Jingyu with a smear. An Obscura in front of them and an Obscura behind them. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu were entrapped between two enemies from both sides. It was a deadly crisis. The accursed Obscura had a smear on his lips and his eyes bubbled with venom. Didn't expect that. The true Obscura is not one person, but two people. We hunt, never separate, and from the moment you stepped into the cave your fates were sealed. You dare hurt me, I'll show you pain and torture with my traps. The Obscura growled, "Big brother, together." Su Yu and Chia Jingyu were no match for two level 7s, no matter how much they had cultivated their deity-level cultivation techniques. Chia Jingyu's pretty face turned pale, but she remained fearless and resolute. Swish! Su Yu suddenly took hold of her jade-like hand. Chia Jingyu's hand trembled and she subconsciously tried to break free, but she was tightly grasped by Su Yu. "Listen to me, we'll make our move together in a moment's time." Su Yu's clear eyes glared at the injured Obscura in front but turned a blind eye to the attacker behind. Chia Jingyu stopped struggling. She felt the desperate nature of the situation and slightly bit her red lips, but held on to Su Yu's hand. Together, both Obscuras charged forward. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu, hands clasped together, ignored the Obscura behind them as they counterattacked where they stood. Reverie of dewdrops. Icy hardcore. Aha! A magnificent scene emerged. Chia Jingyu shot out 10 dewdrops and a pervading deep chill was created. The Obscura roared and resisted with his invisible kick maneuver. Ah! The Obscura only resisted one blow and screamed in distress. His invisible kick stopped midair. He was supposed to resist what ought to be dewdrops, but they had transformed into piercingly cold ice thorns. A sharp ice thorn plunged deep into the base of his foot, which had already been burned by Purple Star Thunderbolt. The terrible chill quickly permeated his blood vessels and flesh and caused both his legs to become stiff. He couldn't budge. The Obscura watched, helplessly terrified, as the remaining 9 dewdrops transformed into ice thorns and pierced his body. All of a sudden, more chills surged through him internally and caused his whole body to become stiff. Pop! The Obscura's body lost all flexibility and crashed to the ground. His two eyes looked frightened, but he could not move. They had successfully overpowered a strong level 7. However, a snarl came behind from the other Obscura, "You're looking for death." Boom! Su Yu and Chia Jingyu turned around, but it was already too late. The other Obscura had already charged forward with the speed of lightning, and was within 10 feet of them. A claw, the violent strike of a level 7 which contained the power to shatter everything, came at Qia Jingyu's petite head. This strike would undoubtedly crush Qia Jingyu. Qia Jingyu was too late to react and she only glanced sideways as she gave Su Yu a sad smile. Perhaps, this would be her last chance to smile in her life. The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 73. This fight was fierce. The difference between the first day at the sanctuary and now was like yin and yang. Qia Jingyu felt regret in her heart, a regret that was too late to express. Feeling the strong wind on her head, Qia Jingyu saved her last look in life and fixed her gaze on Su Yu. It was as if she wanted to engrave the last image of him in her heart during the last moments of her life. The gale finally hit. Qia Jingyu was prepared to bear the anguish of death. But the gale brushed past the top of her head, bringing with it a warm, gentle liquid. The anguish she had anticipated did not appear. In the end, death also never arrived. Lifting her gaze, she saw her headless body stopped within 10 feet of them. As she observed the size of the body, she realized, was that not the big brother Obscura? She realized the object which had flown over her head had been the man's head. Its face registered a look of wrath at death's door, along with a slightly puzzled expression. Until death, he had been unaware of any. The man had suffered only a mere puzzlement as to why he was separated from his body. Upon closer examination, the spot behind the headless corpse had a transparent fine silk thread entwined around both sides of the rock wall, which extended horizontally across the cave at neck height. It was this silk thread which had severed the neck of the Obscura, for two reasons. Firstly, the height of the neck was a blind spot for human eyes. It was difficult to detect. Secondly, the second Obscura had been charged with anger and ran too fast. The sharp entwined dragon silk could cut all living things and the final result was inevitable with the high speed. In fact, earlier while they had been 5 miles away, Su Yu had already observed these two Obscuras setting up a trap. One of them pretended to be injured and entered the cave while the other hid outside, ready for the conjoined attacks before and after. After some detailed calculations, Su Yu decided to benefit from the situation and take the risk of walking into the trap. Upon entering the cave, he immediately set up the entwined dragon silk at the entrance in order to achieve the result of catching the enemy unaware and destroying them. Everything had gone according to plan. The two strong level 7 lower tiers had fallen into his hands at the same time. Qia Jingyu could not bear to see too much of the bloody scene. Her pretty eyes were furious. She wanted to kill the frozen Obscura. Wait, spare his life, I have a use for him. Su Yu's eyes flashed as he searched the two Obscura's bodies. On their backs were sturdy jade bottles embedded into their flesh. The jade bottles seemed to be connected to their hearts. If the slayers tried to take off the jade bottles, it would shatter their hearts and cause death. Su Yu nodded inwardly. Their exile to the evil forest was not without a cost. Presumably, they must have suffered the ultimate pain upon being embedded with the bottles. At the same time, it was thanks to the direct connection from bottle to heart that the sanctuary students did not need to worry about the slayers hiding or destroying their bottles. This ensured that every sanctuary disciple could obtain a jade bottle if they killed a slayer. Su Yu took out the jade hammer with the power of the Holy King and cracked open the jade bottle in order to retrieve the 2 pieces of scarlet body elixir. There was only a pinprick's worth of liquid, but it was filled with intense energy, like a ball of sunlight radiating heat. With some excitement and anticipation, Su Yu and Qia Jingyu each took 1 elixir and swallowed them on the spot. Whoosh! Boiling heat seeped into all 4 limbs and bones. There appeared to an explosive surge of powerful force, increasing their stagnated cultivation bases dramatically. Thump, thump. Suddenly, the two of them broke through to the start of level 6. Furthermore, their cultivation bases did not stagnate and continued to climb as before. Finally, as anticipated by Qiu Changjian, they reached level 6 upper tier. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu quickly glanced at each other, their eyes lit up with delight. The Saint-grade spirit elixir was indeed extraordinary. If they could obtain a few more, breaking through to the top level would not be difficult. However, they now understood the risk. Slayers were cruel, murderous, and extremely dangerous. The two Obscurers had nearly caused their demise. But the Obscurers had the weakest power among many of the Slayer. They would fall if they encountered one who was even a little more tyrannical. The two of them never stopped their cultivation. Their actual cultivation bases were only a part of their cumulative skill level. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu had taken advantage of the battle in order to heighten their knowledge in tactics and strategy as well as increase their abilities. While Qia Jingyu quickly reflected on her comprehension of the first use of Reverie of Dewdrops, Su Yu walked up to the front of the frozen Obscurer. "What are you going to do?" The Obscurer's face was fearful, as his flesh had gradually thawed. Su Yu crouched down and looked at him directly in the eye. His pupils turned dark green in an instant, like jade in the dark night, both resplendent and eerie. Swish. After gazing into the jade-green pupils, the Obscurer's eyes immediately became sluggish and his mind was completely blank. Su Yu slowly closed his eyes, and used the soul-seeking technique to scan the Obscurer's memory in his mind. A moment later, he opened his eyes and secretly rejoiced. The soul-seeking technique was truly magnificent. The Obscurer's many memories were all searched and, from his memory, Su Yu had learned that the obscure fiendish duo had clashed with Du Lin's team half a day ago. No match for the enemy, the two had fled to this point and set up traps to lure in sanctuary disciples in a vain attempt to seize a jade hammer and to take the saint-grade spirit elixir for their own use, so they could break through their cultivation bases. Su Yu tried to use the soul control technique. Both of his pupils shone a bright, dark green which illuminated half the dark cave. "Ah!" The Obscurer screamed several times, seemingly unable to endure the boundless pain. When it was all over, the Obscurer, though restored to normal, could not rid himself of the residual signs of feeble-mindedness. Su Yu felt slightly sorry. The soul control technique manipulated the soul. It was oppressive and dangerous. It was inevitable that the controlled soul would be hurt, and that the controlled's ability would be slightly affected by the strength of the technique. "I pay my respects to you, Master." The Obscurer groveled and bowed. Besides being oppressive, the soul control technique went beyond affecting the opponent's ability. It could make the other party unable to resist any orders. Unless the Obscurer's strength one day broke into the next level, which would allow him to break out of his bondage, as the soul control technique only allowed Su Yu to control those a full level higher than him and below. Su Yu nodded indifferently. "Guard the cave entrance, let no one disturb us." Swish. The Obscurer immediately dashed to the cave entrance and stood on guard. He watched the surroundings attentively for any movement. Su Yu immediately sat down to ponder his experience of the recent fight. When Icy Hardcore had first been used, it had complemented Qia Jingyu's Reverie of Dewdrops, and the resulting attack had multiplied. Su Yu wondered whether the two deity-level cultivation techniques belonged together in a set and were meant to be used together. With the comprehension of Icy Hardcore memorized by heart, Su Yu took the opportunity to comprehend his other cultivation techniques. After a day, Su Yu slowly opened his eyes. The saint-level cultivation technique Floating Light Shadow had progressed the most. He'd reached stage 2 upper class after a day of comprehension. Now his flight speed was faster and his body was as light as a feather. If he could reach stage 3, he could soar through the air and fly high in the sky. Purple Star Thunderbolt was progressing slowly. It still had some ways to go before it reached upper class. Purple Star Thunderbolt was most likely a deity-level cultivation technique, probably of a higher rank, as this explained the difference in comprehension speed. His comprehension of the saint-level cultivation technique Floating Light Shadow was quite fast, so it was abnormal for Purple Star Thunderbolt to be more challenging than the deity-level cultivation technique, Icy Hardcore. In the terms of the Holy Decree, Su Yu had progressed his technique. With his comprehension deepening over time, Su Yu increasingly felt that his previous simple emulations had been wrong. A true holy decree should originate from within one's self, not from emulating others. Su Yu had gradually broken away from emulation and had begun to find his own holy decree. Hiss. A fragrant aroma filled the area and greatly whetted Su Yu's appetite. He glanced sideways. It turned out to be the already awakened Qia Jingyu crouching at the cave entrance as she carefully cooked dinner. As he gazed at the focused and beautiful image of a woman, graceful like a celestial beauty, Su Yu's heart sighed with regret. Whoever managed to marry Qia Jingyu would be blessed for the rest of his life. The celestial beauty's exceptional features, lithe and graceful stature, tender-hearted nature, and her strong, perfect heart, she was truly beautiful on the inside and out. Women such as her were rare in the world. When Su Yu pictured Qia Jingyu married to another man, his chest ached. With a wry smile, Su Yu whispered to himself, I have Xianna and I'm still not satisfied. How can I have another woman on my mind? Hearing movement, Qia Jingyu turned back and smiled like a bashful lotus, pure and delicate. You're awake, come eat. Su Yu dared not gaze any further at that pure, beautiful face. He seamlessly avoided sitting across Qia Jingyu as he ate. After they had eaten, the three of them set off for the inner periphery. As for the trap at the cave entrance, Su Yu not only kept it in place, he had also added another line of entwined dragon silk to the trap. Once an enemy fell into it, their doom was guaranteed. Throughout the day they walked until, 20 miles later, they reached the border between the outer and inner peripheries. Beyond them was the inner periphery, where the vast majority of slayers dwelled. Level 7 upper tiers and peaks were everywhere, even terrifying level 8 slayers. If they were inattentive and encountered level 8 slayers, it would be difficult to survive. Ha! Bang! A sudden breeze blew over, carrying the sounds of fighting. Su Yu followed the direction of the breeze as he dilated his crystalline pupils and looked around. The sanctuary disciplines are surrounded 5 miles away, we must assist right away. The scene was a little far away so Su Yu could only roughly see the figures, he was unable to fully distinguish their appearances. Together, Su Yu and his companions rushed to help. 1 mile away, Su Yu's gaze slightly cooled, so it's Du Lin's team. Qia Jingyu did not have a good opinion of Du Lin. If she had known it was Du Lin there earlier, she would not have rushed over. At that moment, Du Lin, Zhang Mingyi, senior sister Lu, and Feng Hao were engaged in difficult combat. They were surrounded by 4 level 7 lower tier slayers, danger was on all sides. Du Lin, a level 7 upper tier, was entangled with 3 slayers. Zhang Mingyi was a level 6 peak, and both senior sister Lu and Feng Hao were level 6 upper tiers. The 3 of them struggled to resist the pressure of a level 7 lower tier slayer. Du Lin was still fine and at ease. But Zhang Mingyi and the rest were in extreme danger. Zhang Mingyi's mouth was full of blood, senior sister Lu's torso was slashed and bloody, and Feng Hao had 3 fingers chopped off, his fist dripped blood. 4 slayers were rebels from Luri Empire. They had killed and cut down countless men in the battlefield and had been deposed after the rape and assault of women. The 4 men harbored bitter resentment and committed evil everywhere. They slaughtered and exterminated common people in village. The nature of their heinous crimes was staggering. The 4 of them campaigned all year around. They were familiar with each other, skilled in coordination, and successful in every undertaking. Su Yu, what should we do? Asked Qia Jingyu. Su Yu pondered for a moment before he helplessly offered a reply. We can turn a blind eye to Du Lin's situation. But we have no grudge or enmity with senior sister Lu. Moreover, there are 4 pieces of Saint-grade spirit elixir right here, how can we give that up? With them gathered like this, it's easier for us to capture all 4 of them. Otherwise, it would be difficult to cut down all 4 with one-on-one combat. Qia Jingyu nodded in agreement and they immediately made their move. Only the Obscura held back and remained still, following Su Yu's mental command. Reverie of Dewdrops. Purple Star Thunderbolt. After their breakthrough to level 6 upper tier, the absolute crushing dominance of a level 7 lower tier felt much weaker. Su Yu's Purple Star Thunderbolt's formidable power was fully taken advantage of. Aha! Boom! Ah! One of the level 7 lower tier slayers who had Du Lin surrounded was struck in the torso by Su Yu in a flash and perished on the spot. Qia Jingyu's deity-level cultivation technique's formidable power was not any weaker than the Purple Star Thunderbolt, it also struck down a level 7 lower tier in a snap. The Divine 9 Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 74. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu made a silent, joint decision as they quickly collected the Saint-grade spirit elixir before they turned around to kill the Slayer, suppressing Zhang Mingyi and his team. At first, Du Lin was glad to receive help. Then, when he found out that the Saint-grade spirit elixir had been intercepted by Su Yu of all people, he was enraged. He wanted to prevent Su Yu from killing another Slayer, but there was still one more Slayer attacking him and Du Lin was unable to free himself. Just as he had been about to kill the Slayer attacking him, Su Yu and Chia Jingyu had joined forces and quickly killed the last Slayer in order to obtain the Saint-grade spirit elixir. Within minutes, Su Yu and Chia Jingyu had obtained 3 Saint-grade spirit elixirs. Du Lin's team had only gotten 1 piece. Logically, Su Yu and Chia Jingyu, as long as they both swallowed 2 pieces of the Saint-grade spirit elixirs at the same time, could further improve and successfully break through to level 6 peak. In other words, in order to make a breakthrough they just needed to kill 1 more Slayer. Although the risks were big in the evil forest, the potential for cultivation base improvements was great. Chia Jingyu and Su Yu were happy beyond words. Full of gratitude, senior sister Lu endured her sharp pain and curtsied in respect. Many thanks to junior brother Su and junior sister Chia. If the 2 of them had not intervened in time, she would have been doomed. Feng Hao's face was fearful. Only a few days apart, the 2 of them had been able to join forces to kill a level 7 lower tier. A tremendous pressure weighed on Feng Hao's chest. They were all newcomers from the heavenly sanctuary, but the disparity between their power was already like heaven and earth. Zhang Mingyi's face turned pale, then red. Before their departure, he'd mocked Su Yu and Chia Jingyu. He had said that they would not survive 3 days without any strong protector. But now it seemed even with a strong man like Du Lin to protect him it would be difficult to survive 2 days, much less 3. Contrastingly, both Su Yu and Chia Jingyu had greatly increased their abilities even without any strong protector. Su Yu lightly glanced at Zhang Mingyi and Feng Hao before he simply cupped his hands towards senior sister Lu. He nodded, about to leave. Stop! A deep roar came from behind them. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu turned back to face the sullen, cold eyes of Du Lin. Put down the elixirs. Du Lin snarled. Having just seen him kill a level 7 lower tier, Du Lin curbed his bloodlust, afraid of the consequences. Although he was fairly certain that he could kill both of them, he was uncertain that he would leave the battle unscathed. If by any chance, he were to be wounded by the 2 of them, it could turn bad very fast. He did not want to be wounded in the evil forest. Therefore, Du Lin only ordered them to put down the elixirs, instead of immediately fighting them. Shouldn't you first thank us for lending a hand? Su Yu indifferently replied. Du Lin's face turned red. His expression was exceptionally rude and unreasonable. I didn't ask you for help. Why should I be thankful to you? Su Yu responded with a shrug. Actually, I didn't even think about saving you. I only made a move for senior sister Lu's sake. Otherwise, if you had died I would have only rubbed my palms and laughed. You really don't have to thank me. You. Du Lin's face flushed with anger as he growled, I'm giving a final chance, put down the elixirs or die. Though senior sister Lu was weak and attached to Du Lin, her heart was full of righteousness. Senior brother Du, Su Yu has saved us. How can you be this way? Senior sister Lu asked resolutely. Shut up, I'll kill you too. Du Lin's cold eyes made senior sister Lu's heart jump, and she backed away in fear. Du Lin glared at Su Yu. Good. It looks like you do not intend to hand over the elixirs. Therefore I, Du, shall give it a try and see just how powerful you have become. He growled coldly through clenched teeth. He had already wished to kill Su Yu, and now, provoked by the 3 pieces of Saint-grade spirit elixir, he had finally decided to make his move. Iron Horse Glacier. Du Lin growled as he focused his body into a wonderful state. Holy Decree. A top-grade Holy Decree. Whereas Su Yu's Holy Decree was similar to entering a painting, Du Lin's Holy Decree was like entering a monumental moment in time. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu felt as though they were watching an army of 1,000 soldiers and 10,000 horses, trampling on a winter glacier. The army was destructive, crushing and destroying everything within 10,000 mills, over rivers and mountains. Faced with such an imposing force, Su Yu's heart throbbed. Uninvited despair leaked into his chest. His confidence had diminished before the fight even began. This was Du Lin's holy decree: intimidate in order to weaken the enemy's fighting power. Swish. Su Yu resisted the fear in his heart with great difficulty as he held the soft body of Qia Jingyu. Qia Jingyu's palms shivered and her face flushed. She wanted to retreat, but she could feel the warmth and strength of Su Yu's big hands and, surprisingly, her heart gradually became calm and peaceful. Her fear completely vanished. As long as Su Yu was around, she had a safe haven from hurricanes and storms of any sort. Deeply calm, Qia Jingyu's snow-white cheeks turned crimson. She took Su Yu's hand and deeply savored the enriching moment of peace. At the same time, Su Yu fell into the state of his holy decree. He became disassociated from the material world, melting into a picturesque portrait of himself. Qia Jingyu, who stood with him and held his hand, involuntarily entered the painting realm as well. In that instant, the two of them were like a celestial, a mortal couple as they faced the incoming danger. Qia Jingyu's clear eyes slightly closed as she merged into Su Yu's holy decree. Her mind went into a state of emptiness. She could feel the power of his holy decree with her supernaturally powerful insight. Just like that day amidst the pear blossoms under the moonlight, they held their hands together in the same way, comfortable and at peace with each other. When her pretty eyes slowly opened, she felt a profound sense of enlightenment which reverberated in her heart. Su Yu was shocked. Qia Jingyu had actually managed to comprehend his holy decree instantly. Swish. There was no time to think. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu made their move together. Boom. Both holy decrees were superimposed. The endless painting realm spread outward in all directions, swallowing everything within a mile radius. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu took one look at each other. Their hearts connected. They took their shot at the same time. Their conjoined hands shot forward and hit outward with a punch. Rumble. It was clearly only an ordinary punch, but it had caused the entire painting realm to tremble like it was going to crack. In that instant, Du Lin's iron horse glacier momentum was annihilated in a puff of smoke. Wow. Du Lin's mouth opened and spurted out a mouthful of blood as he fell back a few steps, his face deathly white. His internal organs had suffered several violent jolts. He was seriously injured. His eyes filled with deep horror. Two level 6 upper tiers had joined forces together and had unexpectedly seriously injured him, despite his powerful condition. Covering his abdomen, Du Lin was indescribably horrified. The two of them, joined together as a united force, created a formidable team. Most chilling to see was Su Yu and Qia Jingyu enter a state of comprehension after they had used the holy decree. Just from that single majestic blow, Su Yu was able to comprehend his previously stagnant holy decree. Ever since the holy meet, his comprehension of the holy decree had deepened, profoundly and incomparable. There was a continuous flow now, along with this new comprehension. Even more wondrous was that Su Yu's and Qia Jingyu's holy decrees had come from one source. Now, both of their holy decrees had fused and become superimposed. This led to Su Yu's and Qia Jingyu's comprehension merging. They had achieved mutual awareness. Qia Jingyu's superb powerful insight caused Su Yu's deep and profound comprehension to deepen and transform. Whoa! A nameless whirlwind reverberated around their two bodies. Their joint holy decree comprehension surged and soared. Su Yu's eyes glazed over as he slowly raised his finger and muttered, "So this is the holy decree, deliberately harmonizing with nature." Just merging into the painting realm eventually had its flaws. Only when the heart and body belong to nature can every movement in the painting realm become part of the natural realm. Qia Jingyu shared Su Yu's comprehension. Her heart was joyful. She had relied on her extraordinarily powerful insight which had now deepened and transformed, making her comprehension deeper and clearer. The two held hands as they entered the wondrous state. Du Lin's eyes were cold as he growled, "You three, go ahead and take this opportunity to kill them." Zhang Mingyi and Feng Hao hesitated. There was no life or death hatred between them and the two standing before them, so there was really no need to kill them. But when they thought of the saint-grade spirit elixir, their hearts became greedy. Eyes flashing, Zhang Mingyi and Feng Hao charged to kill. Swoosh. A beautiful shadow blocked them. It was the seriously injured senior Sister Lu. With her dignified expression, senior Sister Lu admonished him, "Don't you have any conscience? Without him, the three of us would have already died at the hands of the slayers." Move aside. Zhang Mingyi could not help but feel angry at junior Sister Lu. Boom. Bang. Without another word, Zhang Mingyi immediately rushed forward against senior Sister Lu. Feng Hao smeared and bypassed the two of them. He quietly sneaked up to attack Su Yu and Qia Jingyu, who were both still in a trance. Feng Hao's heart lamented as he gazed at Qia Jingyu's alluring figure, but his eyes immediately clouded over. "Junior Sister Qia, don't blame me for being cruel. If you want to place blame, then blame yourself for choosing the wrong man." Swoosh. A dagger appeared in his palm. Both of his eyes looked vicious and ferocious as he stabbed at him, seeking to cause harm. No. Senior Sister Lu was enraged. Zhang Mingyi smeared. Eyes filled with venom, Du Lin's smear was vengeful. Just as it seemed Su Yu and Qia Jingyu's lives were in true danger. Swish. A sharp wave of vital energy whooshed outwards. Ah! Feng Hao's smirking face distorted with pain as he let out several terrible screams. The vital energy pierced his heart and caused his chest to burst. A figure who had remained hidden in the distance abruptly came forward. The Obscura. Su Yu had taken several precautions before he had involved himself. He had arranged for the Obscura to hide in the dark, instructed to only strike if there was a crisis. A level 7 lower-tier slayer. Du Lin paled. Zhang Mingyi felt fear strike him as the Obscura's eyes landed on him. Ah! With a shriek, Zhang Mingyi was scared witless and his whole face turned dark crimson. He shoved back senior Sister Lu and frantically fled. The Obscura wanted to take chase but stuck near Su Yu and Qia Jingyu instead. Their comprehension took an hour. When they opened their eyes, a wondrous scene greeted them. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu, with no change to their cultivation bases, emerged with totally different temperaments. It was as if they had gained an additional, inexplicable temperament. Qia Jingyu became more alluring and beautiful than any celestial beauty. Du Lin and the Obscura were both startled. They were deeply entranced by Qia Jingyu and only recollected themselves after a moment. What is it? Just one look and I'm hypnotized. Du Lin was horrified. Su Yu, with his flowing purple robes and star-like, limitless eyes now carried an air of synthetic artistry around him. His skin, eyes, and hair all seemed hyper-real, as though he had just stepped out from a painting. Senior Sister Lu's beautiful eyes fixed on Su Yu's body as she was immersed in the inner meaning of the painting realm which encircled him. Su Yu was also, undoubtedly, a handsome man, and, like handsome men tend to do, his presence made her blush and her heart skip a beat. He was the most beautiful man she had ever seen. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu smiled at each other. Their holy decree journey had made new progress. They had intended for it to happen, but they had fully ingrained themselves with their holy decrees. They now lived in a state of hyper-reality, every movement carrying a strand of their holy decrees. They looked like celestial immortals among men. The power of their holy decrees rose dramatically. Su Yu's gaze swept fell on Du Lin, his eyes cold. He had originally not intended to kill anyone, but Du Lin had gone too far. This man could not remain. Once again, the sun set as the moon rose. Midnight in the evil forest arrived above their heads. The Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. Chapter 75. Swish. Su Yu charged forward. His eyes were a dazzlingly dark green which illuminated half of the forest. Ah! Amidst the mournful screams of Du Lin, his soul was successfully controlled by Su Yu. With the damage inflicted to his soul plus his bodily injuries, his ability was only slightly stronger than a level 7 lower tier, much weaker than level 7 upper tier. Su Yu retrieved the spirit elixir from Du Lin, including the previous 3 elixirs. They had a total of 4. Su Yu and Qia Jingyu each had 2, enough to break through to level 6 peak. Senior Sister Lu, ahead of us is the inner periphery, it's dangerously unpredictable, you ought to speedily retreat. Su Yu said with his fists cupped. Senior Sister Lu gratefully bowed and sighed with a wry smile. After this, I really don't intend to go any deeper into the forest. The opportunities are plenty in the evil forest, but they're more than I can manage. Junior Brother Su, Junior Sister Chia, thank you for your kindness in saving me. I will not cross over. Swish. Senior Sister Lu turned away from the forest interior and left the evil forest. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu immediately led Du Lin and the Obscura away from the spot as they looked for a remote hidden place to swallow the elixir and break through to the next tier. Zhang Mingyi had run in a panic, unaware of where he was going. It was dark when he realized that he'd already accidentally entered the inner periphery. Damn Su Yu. Zhang Mingyi's face was wretched and resentful as he looked around the dark forest, feeling worried. Just then, he discovered a faint flare in the valley ahead. Zhang Mingyi was alarmed instead of happy, his eyes were afraid, he wanted to retreat. The inner periphery was the territory seized by the Slayers. Where there was fire, there were people. There was a chance they could be heavenly disciples, but there was a 90% chance they were Slayers. Furthermore, the heavenly sanctuary disciples had enough common sense to not light fires at night, because the firelight in the night was enough to attract the attention of the Slayers 10 miles away. Therefore, those who lit fires at night would be Slayers, 9 times out of 10. Zhang Mingyi, a level 6 peak of the martial path, could not even compare to the lowest level Slayers. An encounter with one meant death. However, Zhang Mingyi suddenly caught a wisp of a fragrance in the breeze. One light sniff immediately paralyzed his entire body, he found it hard to move. Rustling. Light and graceful footsteps traveled from the darkness, a dark evil laughter like grating metal drifted to his ears. Hey hey. Very sharp, but you were already poisoned when you discovered the firelight. A dark palm covered with pus-filled pimples landed on his shoulder and dragged him into a cave in the darkness. A pearl in the cave emitted some light. What made Zhang Mingyi gasp was that there were 3 corpses turned into pulp inside the cave. The charred bones and the bloody, pulpy flesh gave off an acrid pungent smell. The smell was vomit-inducing. The scattered clothing made Zhang Mingyi even more horrified. Sanctuary disciples. Hey hey, not bad. You are the 4th sanctuary disciple caught by my devil claws. Zhang Mingyi clearly saw the other person's appearance in the faint light. It was not a face of a human. His features were rotten and his cheek was full of watery pus. A pair of eyes blended into his skin, all blood red colored. You are the Slayer, 9 deadly poison devil. Zhang Mingyi croaked as if he was choked, his expression frightened. The 9 deadly poison devil was known in Baking Empire as a fearsome criminal. His ability reached level 7 peak, just slightly away from reaching level 8. However, what terrified most people was his preferred profession, his poison techniques. Steeped in poison techniques all the year round, his mind and temperament were wild. He employed cruel means, like using highly toxic poisons to torture anyone who caught his fancy, to death. The 3 pulpy corpses that lied right there, reeking of blood, were proof enough of the torture that they suffered before their death. The Empire had dispatched masters to hunt and kill him 9 times, and he had narrowly escaped each time. That was how the name 9 Deadly Poison Devil came to be. Hey hey, you already know my devil name. You should know what the devil wants to do next. The 9 Deadly Poison Devil wore an evil grin on his face. Pop. Zhang Mingyi went soft at the knees and knelt on the ground. His entire body trembled in fear as he groveled. Lord Poison Devil, please let me go. Whatever you want me to do, I'll promise you all. The 9 Deadly Poison Devil, evil grin still as wide, pulled out a bottle of black powder from his shirt. Zhang Mingyi's stomach dropped and suddenly something sparked in his mind. Lord Poison Devil. I know where there are more heavenly sanctuary disciples. They have 4 pieces of saint-grade spirit elixir in their hands. Crack. 4 pieces. The 9 Deadly Poison Devil blood red eyes flashed red hot. The bottle in his hand bottle was unconsciously crushed. Zhang Mingyi saw from the corner of his eyes that the jade bottle inlaid on the 9 deadly poison devil's back had been opened and the spirit elixir inside had disappeared without a trace. This led him to think of the death of the 3 heavenly sanctuary disciples. The answer came to him. There were 2 reasons for why the 9 deadly poison devil had hunted and killed heavenly sanctuary disciples here. Firstly, it was to get the jade hammer, open the jade bottle on his back and to retrieve the elixir. Secondly, to cut down the heavenly sanctuary disciples and plunder their elixirs. Lead the way. The 9 deadly poison devil licked his lips. The terrible breath of a level 7 peak vaguely wafted past. Eventually, they arrived at the location of the battle between Su Yu and Du Lin. The 9 deadly poison devil's bloody eyes looked around as some black poisonous powder sprinkled from his hand. The poisonous powder was sensitive to blood and breath. It formed a thin line on the ground which pointed out the direction of Su Yu's hidden cultivation spot. Du Lin had bleeding wounds. This was the reason for their discovery. Somewhere around a rock formation in the forest, Su Yu commanded Du Lin and the Obscura to stay hidden and guard the spot. He and Qia Jingyu then began their breakthrough. After 2 saint-grade spirit elixirs were swallowed, pure boundless energy imbued their flesh. The lightning speed of their breakthrough was visible to the naked eye for both of their cultivation bases. Swoosh. However, there was suddenly the sound of urgent footsteps. Enemy attack. The Obscura and Du Lin exclaimed at the same time as they emerged from their hiding place and blocked Su Yu and Qia Jingyu. At that moment, just as the 2 of them were at the crucial point of their breakthroughs, the enemy invaded. The 9 deadly poison devil appeared, his pus-filled eyes slowly rotating as he fixed his glare on Su Yu and Qia Jingyu's persons. The 9 deadly poison devil became exceptionally angry. The elixirs were gone. Fine. While your elixir power is still in the blood, drinking your blood will have the same effect. The 9 deadly poison devil licked his lips, ferocious and inhumane. Invisible kick. The Obscura brazenly attacked. An airtight formation of kicks created a succession of residual images. The full-blown power of a level 7 lower tier was astounding. The corner of the 9 deadly poison devil's mouth curled up into an indifferent sneer. Both his hands were tucked into his sleeves, they did not move one bit. Boom. The Obscura's legs swept forward in a lethal blow to the 9 deadly poison devil's heart. Ah! But the Obscura screamed once and flew backward. The extent of his right leg's corruption by the watery black blood was visible. The poison spread from his leg to his entire body. In a blink of an eye the Obscura's body turned pitch black, his breath died out, and he perished on the spot. A moment later, his flesh became watery blood. The bloody and savage scene made one's blood run cold. Du Lin looked grave. He knew not to touch the 9 deadly poison devil. Iron Horse Glacier. His whole body poured into his holy decree. Du Lin was like the general of an army of 10,000. His magnificent momentum was crushing and vast. Pop. Not far behind was Zhang Mingyi, both of his legs weakened under the crushing and earth-shattering momentum. He collapsed, throwing up blood. The 9 deadly poison devil's eyes were mocking as he jeered, cheap tricks. Swish. The 9 deadly poison devil was merely seen to flick his finger once and a wisp of black dust fused with his vital energy and ejected. Wow. Pop. In a flash, Du Lin was punctured in the chest. Strong poisonous powder infected his chest and turned into a huge blood hole. He took his last breath on the spot. 2 strong level 7s, wiped out in a snap. The 9 deadly poison devil with his poison techniques and level 7 peak ability was extremely terrifying. Without any more obstruction, the 9 deadly poison devil, with an evil glint in his eyes, darted towards Su Yu and Qia Jingyu. Swoosh. Taking advantage of his nearness, his 2 pus-filled hands reached out to grab both of their heads. Boom. Just as he reached them, Su Yu and Qia Jingyu had their breakthroughs, just in time. The breakthroughs created a violently strong cyclone that hindered the 2 giant hands for a moment. Swish. The 2 of them struck the ground and leaped back. A sweeping glance at the poisoned Du Lin and the Obscura more or less surmised the recent fight. A level 7 peak was the strongest enemy they'd encountered. His body is highly poisonous, do not touch him. Su Yu's revolving pupils detected that his body was covered with a faint layer of poisonous mist, which made it difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. The Obscura, unable to detect the mist, had made contact with the poisonous mist and turned to watery blood on the spot. If they could not attack at close range, then attacking at a distance was the only way. The two, with their deep connection, naturally held hands and stood. Icy hardcore. Reverie of dewdrops. Aha! 10 chilly dewdrops pierced the sky. The 9 deadly poison devil's evil grin froze and his expression turned somber for the first time as he coldly shook his head. You've some skills, what a pity, it was too weak. His hoarse voice crowed. Pop. The 9 deadly poison devil opened his mouth and spewed out 10 drops of highly poisonous blood. Aha! 10 dewdrops were melted by the acid rain. Su Yu's and Chia Jingyu's pupils contracted, even the blood in his body was that toxic. A grave look emerged in their eyes. They glanced at each other once before the two nodded and held hands as they prepared to attack. Swoosh. Together, they both instantaneously created a vast painting realm, enveloping everything within a mile radius. Even the 9 deadly poison devil became part of the painting realm. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu held their hands together to strike. They delivered an ordinary, singular punch which contained an inexplicable rhythm. The 9 deadly poison devil gasped and gravely uttered, "Saint grade holy decree." Holy decrees were divided into a lower grade, middle grade, and top grade. Su Yu and Chia Jingyu had never heard of a saint grade above top grade before. Boom. Aha. Wow. The 9 deadly poison devil suffered a blow from the virtual rhythm. An enormous blood gouge appeared in the pit of his stomach and he spurted out blood into the air. Thud, thud, thud. Falling a few steps backward, the 9 deadly poison devil's bloody eyes intensified with graveness. He was hurt by this blow, but not seriously. If he were an average slayer, he may have retreated by now, as he had realized that these two disciples would prove challenging. However, no one could speculate on the rationale of the 9 deadly poison devil's ferocious nature. Completely infuriated, the 9 deadly poison devil ominous glint was revealed. Heaven's annihilation. Crash. The 9 deadly poison devil's body shook violently. The poison powder around his body quivered as his surroundings blurred. Leaves rapidly withered and rotted. Grass quickly shriveled and died. Insects were swiftly twisted and perished. Under the shroud of the black poison powder, all living creatures in heaven and earth belonged to the deathly stillness. Oh no! Su Yu and Chia Jingyu were shocked at the same time. They decided their next choice as one and made their move. Together. Icy hardcore. Reverie of dewdrops. Aha! The vapor around them solidified into a thin layer of ice. The incoming poisonous powder was absorbed by the ice which melded into a black liquid and snaked along the ice wall. The crystal clear ice wall instantly turned pitch black. The terrifying poisonous powder was temporarily warded off, but with more and more poisonous mist coming in, it was hard for the ice wall bear. Crack. The ice wall, unable to withstand such poison, started to crack. The situation was critical. Su Yu's expression was grave. The 9 deadly poison devil was an unprecedented, formidable enemy. Jingyu, I need to take a risk and try something. If I make a mistake, it will be up to you. Su Yu uttered through clenched teeth. Chia Jingyu felt uneasy. Not waiting to hear her objections, Su Yu, eyes flashing, struck. End of the chapter. The Divine 9 Dragon will be read in 5 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.